Hello and welcome to Niner Nate's Nonsense. We are here. We're on YouTube.com, and I have a hell of a show planned for you. First of all, I just want to say anyone who's watching on YouTube or Twitter, thank you. Thank you. You're the reason why we're doing this again, why this is happening. And so I can't thank you enough for letting me do this and be a part of the Niner community. Remember, this thing will be podcast. If you can't check out the whole show, if you're listening to it on the podcast, thank you there as well. But without further ado, let's get into the real show. Here we go. Chad Loomis, as you know him, faithful to the Trey on Twitter. The guy knows more about North Dakota State and Trey Lance than anybody in the world. Probably on Twitter, not in the world, but on Twitter.
No, definitely not in the world.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think, we've gotten this far. Here we are the first night. Not everything went perfectly. There was supposed to be a opening video that I couldn't get done in time. But, hey, we're on YouTube.com, and we're talking 49er football, so it can't be that bad, right?
Yeah, first of all, I love the energy. It's been a while since I've been on the air with somebody that like a 12 going into it, so I love it.
Oh, yeah, that's me all the time.
I used to be that guy. I used to be like 90 miles an hour, like, what the hell's up, people? Yeah. So exactly. I'm glad somebody else is that guy.
I can't control the tone of my voice. And so I don't know if you ever noticed when we're in the spaces, I can't contain my excitement sometimes. And so it just overwhelms people, but I hope it's not going to overwhelm you. Let's talk real quick. I want you to introduce yourself as people who, only know you as faithful to the Trey on Twitter. I want to know more about Chad as the radio host, Chad as the North Dakota State fan. Tell me all about it.
Okay. So I've been in media marketing and advertising for the better part of a quarter of a century, for about 25 years. I went directly from high school actually into radio because it was a family-owned and operated business. A bunch of my family has gone to NDSU. Most of my friends went to NDSU. And for a period of time, our two radio stations were the home of NDSU play-by-play. So we were like the flagship station of the Bison Radio Network. And then we hosted a Bison radio show called Bison Nation every week. And then we would interview guests, being like coaches and players and that kind of stuff in the background. And I kept a couple of my contacts through that. And that's for the majority of the part how I have been able to stay on top of NDSU football. So a couple of people behind the scenes. And I actually introduced one of them in a roundabout way to our boy, Jesse Naylor, who I wanted to give a second of props to as well. And he just had a phenomenal interview with the head coach, Randy Hedberg. And the only reason why I bring it up, because I know you don't, I don't want to cross pollinate. But at the same time, anybody who's over there, come over here and subscribe. That he got some goods that I didn't even know about. I mean, he knew. But he did learn, I don't know if you've watched that interview or not, but he did learn that there was a conversation, like I said, that was about 15 to 20 minutes long, specifically with Kyle Shanahan and Randy Hedberg. And the funniest part is they were like within days of the draft. And Randy's like, I can't talk tonight. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I'm like, who has those kind of balls? You don't see cojones that large unless they're rolling behind Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So. But that's kind of my background. I moved from small market radio just outside of Fargo into the Fargo market, into larger market radio in Minneapolis with a couple of stations there, and then moved down to Atlanta to work in the agency field. So that's what brought me to this point in time. From a direct standpoint of interaction, I have seen Trey Lance live, have seen Malik Willis live. I have seen Trevor Lawrence live and in person, and I have no qualms or quarrels or issues or flat out saying Trey Lance is better than all of them. So
See, that's
I know I'm biased, but I don't pull punches either. So the main problem with people is that they always see subdivision. They always see lesser competition, that kind of stuff. We stopped taking those excuses many years ago. We just did. Granted, the level of competition is considerably different, but every opportunity that NDSU has had once they have had the chance to compete against the FBS, they've dominated. I mean, look at what Christian Watson did in the combine. Look what he did at senior day. It wasn't even close. There wasn't a one-on-one. He didn't take down one of the top CBs or DBs in SEC, AC, you name it. So anyway, that's my background. I wanted to hear a little bit about you as well, because apparently we have very similar backgrounds. You were from iHeartRadio, right?
Yeah, it's funny because this is technically season 2 of Niner Nate's Nonsense, but I can do my introduction again. So I graduated San Francisco State University with a bachelor's degree in broadcasting, electronic communication arts. Nice. Outside of college, I worked for a news station, KPIX5 in the Bay Area. Hated it, and decided that I wanted to get into radio, and that's where I actually had what I'd fallen in love with when I worked when I was in college and when I interned. And so I moved to Seattle for some circumstance. Ended up working for an iHeart media station called KJR 950 KJR. It was a sports station for the Seattle Seahawks. And the Niners were awful, terrible. And so, I'm doing the producer job, editing sound of Russell Wilson. My God, is he boring. But doing all that stuff. And one day, one of the guys approaches me and says,
"You were a board op. You were an engineer." Yeah, no, I've been there. I've done that. I started I was scrubbing toilets to begin with, and that was a family-owned radio station. I get it.
Yeah, and so one day, one guy comes to me and is like, "You know what I want you to do? I want you to talk about the teams the Seattle Seahawks are playing, but I want you, instead of talking about their quarterback, I want you to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo." And so that kind of became a thing of its own.
You're the foremost authority of Jimmy G, and I'm the foremost authody of Trey Lance, and this is just like a battle royale we got going on here.
Well, it's funny because I was so pro Jimmy Garoppolo on Twitter, and people could find stuff of me talking good about Jimmy and all this stuff, and so that's where it started, right? And then it kind of like elevated to doing man on the street segments where I would interview people, but at the very end, I'd ask them how many Super Bowls Jimmy Garoppolo was going to win. And before they could give an answer, I'd say 10 or 5 or something like that, like some crazy number. And so it just progressed to that. And then eventually it became how the 49ers are going to win every week from like a Niner perspective, where I was just super positive and stuff. And that went on for a while. And then COVID hit, and I ended up, leaving iHeart, moving back to California. When I moved back to California, I worked for Niners Nation for a year and kind of just fell in love with podcasting and talking about the 49ers because I feel like one thing I bring that a lot of people don't is just the enthusiasm. There's some people who are really, really knowledgeable, and I try to be knowledgeable, but I try to bring as much enthusiasm as I can. I don't know if you've heard the slogan. We'll say it together when we end this today, and that's the hype train. It never stops, baby. And
I love it.
That's a quick synopsis of me, but like, let's start talking about a lot of different things that I think that Niner fans don't even understand truly. And that's, you being a North Dakota State fan, a lot of people, non-Niner fans specifically, tend to be like, well, Trey Lance played at an FCS school, so he's not as good as, Mac Jones or, Trevor Lawrence. But I want you to talk about North Dakota State, how important winning is there, what kind of like culture they have. I mean, they've won almost every national championship there is to win, basically. So just like tell the listeners about North Dakota State as a school.
Okay, absolutely. More than happy to. So it starts back in the 60s. Technically we were playing since the early 1900s, but the the championships began in the 60s at Division II. Then we dominated Division II. We moved up to the FCS level. From that point, we have dominated the FCS with 9 out of 11 titles. Out of 11 years that we have been eligible to win national championships, 9 of them have been won by NDSU. The major problem that we always have equating to people is, and I preface this with Jesse as well, and I definitely want to get to some of the questions that people are listening already.
Yes. Real quick to interrupt you. Over the course of this show, I'm going to star all the questions. So anyone who's listening, I see there's a couple people checking it out. Ask questions. I'll star them, and we will get to them. We'll do a question and answer before the end of this thing.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So first preface that you have to understand, NDSU is a top 10 college football team, period. Like that's how we see us. Everyone rolls their eyes at us. Everybody, you couldn't beat blah, 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 blah. We've heard it 10,000 times. Okay. In 2016, we beat number 11 Iowa. Ooh, 2016, big deal. That was the last time we were invited to have an FBS game, period. That's the reason why. We won 6 straight. We were 9-3 all time against FBS opponents. we have played lower tier, but also P5 teams, and they pay. I mean, this is the cupcake game, right? Every FBS team gets at least one cupcake FCS game every year. Every single team except NDSU. And it's not coincidence because it didn't just happen one year, because every once in a while there'll be another team that falls off and can't get a FBS game scheduled from the FCS side of things. So just to explain that, the football subdivision, the football bowl is the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio State, in case people don't know this, most do. And then the FCS is just directly below that, the subdivision. It's still Division 1. It drives a lot of people nuts. I could care less. You could call it Division 2. I don't care. So in order to back that up, me saying that we're number 11 or in the top 10, we go into their stadiums. We have to take them on in their home stadium. They offer us money, as they do with every FCS team, to come in and get the crap kicked out of them. But then we beat them, and then we take their money. So it's been 6 straight FBS opponents we've won. We've taken over $2 million in the purse. We will send 11 players from our 2019 roster alone, from Trey Lance's roster, 11 players into the NFL. We'll send 4 quarterbacks in 8 years to the show. We have 2 top 10 quarterbacks in the league as of next year. Yes, I hear exactly what you're saying. Your mind saying Carson Wentz is not a top 10 quarterback. Here's what I will tell you in that regard.
We already got a question about that too, by the way.
Yeah. Did he implode? Did he implode? 1,000%. He was still 9th in QBR. I'm not defending him. I love the kid to death. He needs to shut up. He needs to put his best foot forward. He has to have a phenomenal year or he's out. Honestly, I think that this is his very last chance in Washington, and he needs to make the very most of it. So we want to move up to the FBS. The way that it works is you have to get an invite. NDSU has no invites. No conference wants to invite us because we would automatically be towards likely the top of that conference, especially if we're talking G5, no doubt. If we're talking P5, like a Big Ten West, we'd be middle of the pack towards the top. I mean, we've already proved that. We beat Iowa State, Minnesota. Multiple times Minnesota. And I can explain that as well. If you want to know the foundation and the footings of NDSU, it actually starts with the University of Minnesota. It has to do with one really stupid coach called Brewster from the U of M. About 15 years ago, Tim Brewster decided that he was not going to recruit from the state of Minnesota. So you can imagine all the kids that were planning to go to Minnesota having their hopes dashed. And this team from Fargo, North Dakota comes along and says, we'll take you. And that was the beginning. It was just a bunch of fundamentally sound 2 to 3 star, potential University of Minnesota athletes, we'll say 1 to 3 star, that had an axe to grind against the University of Minnesota. And it inevitably led to our first championship in the FCS. And it also led to us kicking the can I swear?
It's YouTube.
Led to us kicking the crap.
Sure
led to us kicking the crap out of the University of Minnesota back-to-back times. It's actually been so long since we've played them that I find Twitter Gopher fans that are like, oh, you guys suck. You'd never compete with us. And I'm like, boy, do you need a history lesson? So, and that's a lot of it, is people just don't understand the background to know that we are fundamentally an FBS team that's stuck in the FCS because we can't get an invite. And I think, and most of Fargo is now agreeing, and a lot of North Dakota is, that after this next year, when truth be told, they'll likely win the national championship again, it's probably when we'll seriously try and make a push into getting somebody to send us an invite. So anyway.
So we know a little bit more about North Dakota State. I think that's important. I think that's the baseline. Now I want to know from the Niner perspective. So I want to know about Trey Lance. So I want to know, I understand. So Trey Lance sat behind Easton Stick. I'm pretty sure his name was. And I don't know my North Dakota State as well as you do, obviously. So he sat behind
Stick jersey right there. I'm not a Chargers guy. I'm a Vikes guy.
And Easton Stick had won the national championship the year before. Trey Lance comes in, wins the national championship the year after. So let's talk about Trey Lance. What you saw when he was at North Dakota State, the kind of, a lot of people talk about that he was, he ran the ball a lot. But when you watch some of that film, he also chucked that ball. And it seems
Yeah.
like from what we've seen with the Niners, his accuracy has gotten better since then. So let's just talk about Trey Lance. I'd love to know your off the cuff thoughts about Trey Lance when he was at North Dakota State.
Definitely. Okay, so Brock Jensen, our first quarterback, he wasn't our first, but the first one of mention, won 3 national championships with NDSU. Carson Wentz won 4 because he was on the bench for a couple of them. Easton Stick won 3, and Trey Lance won 2. Technically only 1 because he was the starting quarterback, and there's a lot of variation in there. And that will come into play when I talk about year 2 NDSU quarterbacks and being 6 for 6 for championships. That's a big point that I make frequently. But as far as NDSU and Trey Lance, the best part is when you come into that system and you get recruited, and there are some fundamental roots that you have to have as far as character and person. Sorry, I got some weird hair on my hat. But there are traits that you have to have. And I'll try and be quick about this. You have to be a leader in some way or another, whether that's individually in your high school, whether that's in your community. You have to be a multi-sport athlete, and you have to be incredibly intelligent. It's a verbose playbook that you have to learn at NDSU. NDSU is actually the most pro-ready collegiate system in all of college football, hands down. And it has to do with the coaches immediately putting a completely different level of responsibility on the players at NDSU than any other college does. Day one, the quarterbacks have to go in and cut up tape, come up with a game plan, come up with strategies, break out in meetings with running backs and wide receivers and go through all the coverages and the plans of, what this tape looks like, what our plan is going to be moving forward, all the while the coaches are in there either backing or adjusting as need be. So they immediately have that type of responsibility. Trey Lance at 18 years old, this was one of the things that Randy Hedberg had them doing. Randy Hedberg is our quarterback coach, by the way, revered like a god in Fargo.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about him. Yeah,
he's
awesome.
Yeah, so he is a positive guy. You know what I mean? He's not a yelling. He's a pro-positive enforcement guy. He instills responsibility from day one in his players and gives them a lot of rope. Like, they're running the offense when the quarterback is in at NDSU. They're setting the protections themselves. At 18 years old, Trey Lance was was picking apart NFL at the time. He was joking about this, but he was serious. Randy Hedberg said, we actually, during Trey's year here in 2019, we gave the quarterbacks the responsibility and the plan that we wanted them to come back and take a look at all NFL teams and protections and coverages and all that stuff. Come back to us and take a look at like some new plays that we can try out or what's similar to what they do to what we do and how we can incorporate it. And that's been ironic to us because there has been some fundamental NDSU plays that have made their way to the NFL that not a lot of people have given credit for, but we're like, that looks very familiar and original. So yeah, that stuff happens. Actually, Shanahan's taken a couple of our plays. So that's the beginning. Trey Lance is the best that we've put out. I can't perceive another being better. I always say like he's the perfect quarterback and people are like, eye roll, right? Which I get that. He's not the perfect quarterback. The way that I'm trying to explain it is, imagine that you were trying to mold a quarterback from the beginning of time, like birth, to this point in time. That's the guy that you want. That's what Trey is. His dad fundamentally stuck him into an X's and O's mentality from day one. He's all about spreadsheets. He's a nerd. Trey Lance is a big-time football junkie nerd, which is exactly what you want because obviously his social life isn't the best because he's got the responsibility and he knows he has the responsibility of all Niner fans, of all like his friends and family back in Marshall, of all of his friends and family in Fargo. Like he gets that. He takes that on, and anything negative, it's like water off of a duck's back, which is exactly what you want. And he's a 21-year-old kid who's just got this level of maturity. And Fred Warner talked about it, and everybody will. I said this before as well. I think a lot of the problem has been with the fact that Trey hasn't been in front of the cameras on purpose or been available to interviews and that kind of stuff, because he's behind the scenes working his ass off like he's supposed to be and learning everything that he is supposed to. So it's really hard when you've got the social media universe that's swirling 10,000 different rumors on you, and you're just like, I'm just going to keep my head down and do what I'm supposed to do. Meanwhile, you've got like, is Debo even going to be there for him? Is Jimmy Garoppolo not going to be there causing toxicity? So anyway, I'll stop now. Go ahead and talk. I've been on a rant.
No, you're good. This is what I want. I want the information getting out there. That's why we brought you on here for the whole show. And so you talk about him being a big football nerd, being a smart kid. I think, one thing that's super underestimated when it comes to the quarterback position in the modern NFL is obviously arm talent is super important, hand size, all that nonsense, right? But you mentioned nerd. That means Trey Lance is smart, right? The most important thing I think is how smart these guys are coming out of college. So, when you think about Trey Lance and you think about smarts, like, what is your take on that specifically?
He was given, and I apologize for those that watched me on Jesse's channel if I'm reiterating a lot of the same information, but I feel like this is what you're looking for. So
yeah,
he was offered multiple Ivy League academic scholarships that he turned down. One to Brown, the other one is Cornell, I think. And then, he had a 3.9 GPA in school, but that's book smart, right? And a lot of people out there are book smart, but this kid's X's and O's are off the chart. Randy Hedberg specifically said it. He's like, we had all this stuff that, all the other guys were like, we need to do that. And he specifically said, you've got people who look at film and look at film. You've got people that look at film and know what to look for out of film. And that was always Trey Lance. He's like, I didn't teach him any of that. He knew that. He knew exactly what he was looking for from day one. And he knew what we were looking for day one. And he's like, we just kind of let him take the reins and roll. And it's been a joke in the Bay Area, especially with like Kyle Shanahan in the beginning of like preseason and stuff and getting the playbook. And somebody said that they had seen that Trey had put in more hours of studying the playbook on the tablet or whatever smart device than anyone else had. And we were laughing because we knew that was a fact. He's like, oh, I know that you can just like keep that open and get the same and I said this to Jesse, I laugh all the time at that type of stuff because Kyle Shanahan is downplaying the hell out of Trey Lance. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is downplaying the hell out of him for PR purposes of offloading Jimmy. And it, like, as long as he stays on the roster, there's still going to be these questions about, is Trey ready? Is he not ready? Trey has always, listen to me, he's always been ready from your guys' standpoint, from your narrative, right? From what every quarterback in the past has been. You guys are like, well, he sat the first year. He couldn't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. I didn't hear your response when you said if I can swear or not. Can I swear or not? That's bullshit.
You can swear. Just don't make it too much.
No. I definitely won't. And I want no F-bombs.
I don't want to have to get out the bleeps.
No, I'm telling you right now, it's complete BS that Trey was not ready. We don't believe, and by we, I mean NDSU. I apologize that I take on the second person.
No, you're good. You're North Dakota State as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, North Dakota is like Nebraska. That's all we've got is the Bison, so we say we. If anybody takes offense to it, move to North Dakota, get back to me in January, okay? So we fundamentally believe that no quarterback is ready year one. And for all the anal retentive people out there that are watching, yes, Ben Roethlisberger that one time. There's always an exception to the rule, right? But anybody else we do not believe is ready year one. We believe they're ready year two. Carson Wentz was supposed to sit year one. So it was the conversation between Randy Hedberg, Matt Ants, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch specifically stating they're going to redshirt and put Trey on the bench to learn year one. And Randy Hedberg and his conversation with Kyle Shanahan, I can't guarantee because I wasn't on the phone, but I would wager a large sum of money that the majority of it was, especially from interviews I've seen post, of Randy Hedberg saying, Sit him. Don't think about it twice. We know what we're talking about. Shut up. You know play calling better than anyone on the planet. I know quarterbacks. Let's do this. Let's go to the moon. We'll be gold. So that's my opinion on it.
So that's Trey Lance at North Dakota State. So now he's a San Francisco 49er. He's the future of, arguably, like, I obviously, everyone who's in the comments is a Niner fan. But I think that even as someone who's not a Niner fan, the 49ers have to be one of the most important franchises in the history of sports. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking sports. Joe Montana is an icon. Steve Young, an icon, because they played in this red jersey. Maybe not this red, but you know what I mean? And so,
Jerry Rice, same thing.
When you think about Trey Lance and now he's sat for a year, he's going to be the starter. No doubt in my mind. I haven't even had a second guess about it, a second thought about it. What do you think about Trey Lance going into season 2 of his NFL career? What are we going to see? Obviously we saw some fun stuff. We saw the Houston Texans game. We saw that gorgeous pass to Deebo Samuel right in the breadbasket, easy touchdown. Me and my father were at that game. One of the best Christmas gifts ever, just to watch that kid play because, Jimmy doesn't make that throw, right? And so what do Niner fans have to expect of Trey Lance, or what kind of things can they look forward to, rather? Like, what can he become this year?
Fantastic question, first of all. Second of all, Trey Lance 2.0. It's going to be different. It's going to be probably different than most people think. I have a lot of people who approach me on Twitter from like a soft standpoint of like, I think he's going to struggle a little bit and ups and downs to begin with, just like any rookie would. And I'm always like, see right there, that's the difference between the fundamental narrative of you guys in your rookie season and our fundamental belief of redshirting and basically learning, you know what I mean? Developing for that year. Our year 2 guys don't start slow. If it happened, it'd be the first time ever. They come out hard, they come out fast, they come out strong, they come out better than everyone. And I don't just mean the quarterbacks in their class, I mean everyone. If you want an exact evidence of it, 2017 Carson Wentz. How do I explain this? At the time, Carson Wentz was having the greatest sophomore season in the history of quarterbacking in the NFL, period. End of story. Look up the stats. He was the leader for the MVP vote when he got hurt. He led the Eagles right up to the doorstep for Foles to take over into the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. By the way, there's no effing way that Foles wins the Super Bowl without Carson Wentz teeing it up for him. Everybody knows that Foles is like a 3-game quarterback. The second the defense has enough game film or tape cut up on Foles, he's pretty readable and he gets dominated. He's fantastic for a couple of games, which was the same situation there. So you can expect him to come out pretty strong right out of the gate. He is going to have his ups and downs throughout the season, but it's going to be way more ups than downs. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is having a heyday in the offseason, drawing up some plays for them to – I want to see something unique. I mean, like last year, we got to see Cordero Patterson and Deebo Samuel completely recreate or not recreate, create a brand new position of, a hybrid. I want to see some sort of hybrid between what your offense is right now and like play action rollouts, because I think one of Trey's superpowers is throwing on the run. It's not throwing, it's not crossing the line of scrimmage. That's been the number one problem with people is when you think of him as versatile, when you think of other quarterbacks as versatile, of two-way players, of mobile quarterbacks, you think of them as running, right? That's not the way to think of Trey Lance. Trey Lance is a run 6th quarterback, meaning he goes through his 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th progressions, all the while keeping his eyes downfield. Then he does not run forward. He scrambles. That's number 5, still keeping his eyes downfield. This is another one of his superpowers is he has patience in the pocket, and you can see that by him climbing the pocket frequently, even when he probably shouldn't. He has a lot of faith in his linemen. He's always had that ability, especially in North Dakota State. He holds on to the ball a little bit too long. At the same time, he's going to scramble around and be able to buy most of that extra time. You are going to see an efficiency in your run game unlike you thought was possible. The key is, and it always will be, you go deep early. I'm not joking. I'm not effing around. There's no other option. There's no other way to play him. I saw Kyle Shanahan's game plan and his scheme for Trey Lance in the Arizona game, in half of the Seattle game, and in the first half of the Texans game. It was horseshit. It was horrible because he was playing him like he was a run-first quarterback, just like he saw in the FCS championship game with Trey Lance when he ran 30 times for 166 yards. That's not him. Stop running him up the gut like a fullback. Stop giving him design runs, maybe 4 to 5 of them per game, not 20 of them per game. If you trust his arm, he will reward you and then some. He goes downfield early, a go route, scare the crap out of the secondary. All of a sudden, they're on the balls of their feet. They're going backwards instead of forwards. You opened up the run game. Now, if you want to design run, there is some space to do that. He has more time to scramble. He has more time to allow his wide receivers to get open. I really hope they hold on to Debo. I really do, because he is a freak and a half. And I think he and Trey together were going to be magic. And I say that because I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I'll tell you this. If Debo's gone, I'm 100% pushing as hard as I humanly can what I've been hesitant to push, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Christian Mofo Watson, dude.
And we will get to Christian Watson. I promise. We will get to Christian Watson. Because that's a whole nother thing. I brought you on here for Trey Lance and Christian Watson. We will talk about Christian Watson because I have become the biggest Christian Watson stan on Twitter outside of maybe Davo. When it comes to just people who love that kid. But sticking with the Trey Lance thing, you mentioned, and this is, I think, the thing that made Mahomes so good is Mahomes, like you said, his sixth thing he wants to do is run. That guy is looking to throw that ball as far as he can every single play. And so with Trey Lance, I really feel like exactly what you said, that the 49ers offense is going to be I don't want to use the word drastic because that's a little much, but it's going to be a lot better with Trey Lance than it is with Jimmy Garoppolo, because not only is he going to throw the ball downfield and actually, scare teams, because I'm sure you watched a lot of Niner games last year where the safeties are just sitting there waiting for him to run. And I just don't think that's a thing that's going to happen with Trey Lance, especially when you talk about him the way you do.
Yeah, the second half of that Texans game, that's what I can tell you that you can take a lot of solace in for the Bay fans right now. And I took a lot myself. Kyle Shanahan found Trey Lance's game in the second half of the Texans game, and I'm pretty sure Trey told him that. I could be wrong. I absolutely could be. But all of the signs that I got from him in regards to him going deep to Brandon Ayuk when he did this, in regards to getting the pass interference call, is him saying, you have to let me go vertical to open up my field. He did that, and from that point forward, Trey rolled, honestly. I think there was maybe one 3 and out series after that. Yeah, he was rolling. Everybody keeps saying this thing like, oh, he's slow. He started so slow in the Seattle game, and the Arizona game was terrible. Yeah, you were running him like a fullback for half the game, for Christ's sakes. You don't play Trey Lance that way. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the Wizard of football. That was stupid. I'm calling out Kyle Shanahan, who will never see this. That was really dumb. Now he learned his lesson, and he's had all that time to work on the fundamentals of his game plan and his play calling, and hopefully a brand new playbook for Trey's abilities. So,
do you think that was just, Kyle not understanding Trey Lance exactly, or not understanding what he had? Or why do you think that, we noticed that Arizona game, another game that he started, he ran him a lot. And I understand some people talk about the finger injury that he suffered from, but do you think that that's just a misconception because of the fact that he is an athletic quarterback, that, Kyle has been like, oh, I'm going to run him? Or what do you specifically, what do you attest to the fact that they didn't let him throw until that second half of that Texans game?
It was trusting his arm. No, straight up. It was trusting his arm. It was, you don't, if you watch Trey Lance and you watch his game film, you're like, oh, he can run. Oh, look, he's doing these design runs. They're fantastic. No. Not until the deep. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't do one without the other. You don't just go deep and then don't go to the run game, right? You don't just go to the run game without going deep. You go deep first, then you go to the run game because it's common sense and you open up your field. And when you've got somebody like Christian Watson, I got the biggest kick out of somebody today who's like, Christian Watson has such a limited run tree. And I was like, when you run 23 miles an hour, you kind of can, moron. You know, like, yeah. I understand completely what you're saying, that DBs and cornerbacks now in the NFL are going to be different. He's always had a route tree capable. He didn't have to have one in the FCS. There's nobody running a 4-3. There's maybe 3 players that ran a 4-3. He had to face 2 of them. So
let's do one more Trey Lance question, then we're going to get to Christian Watson.
No. Please do.
I got a question. No.
Top.
That's perfectly fine. So Rich McDonald, he's asking, what's the biggest improvement we're going to see from Trey Lance going into the second season?
Ooh, that's a very good question. It's going to be his, I don't want to say accuracy. He's going to be a 67% accuracy. It's going to be more deep downfield shots is what it's going to be. It's going to be more deep, more depth. It's going to be going deep more frequently. And then it's going to be Trey Lance running a hell of a lot more efficiently and effectively. Like, he breaks off 20, 30, 40-yard runs because he can run for, he can run a 4 or 5. He ran 21.54 miles per hour during the FCS championship. He has that ability. He's not extremely fast, definitely quick enough to be picking up stuff on the underneath, but the key has always been deep first to open up everything else. So that's kind of the key. So it's going to be deep shots, and it's going to be his running capability is going to be more efficient.
Okay, so now the moment you've been waiting for, the moment that the listeners, the millions, have been waiting for, we're going to talk about the most exciting draft prospect for the 49ers, at least where they are this year.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Christian Watson. So we're going to go all the way back a little bit. We're going to go back to Christian Watson at North Dakota State. And so I want you to tell me, when you watched Christian Watson at North Dakota State with Trey Lance, without Trey Lance, what did you see? And just tell people who don't understand what this kid actually is a little bit more about him.
Okay. So I'm going to start this by saying, and I'm invoking a name that I never have invoked, and I have a reverence to this name because I am a Minnesota Vikings fan and I hate using it, but he's Moss Light. Honestly, I see a lot of Randy Moss capabilities that are unpolished. You know what I mean? And it has a lot to do with just like the amount of reps and the competition that he's facing, that kind of stuff. So he was a 2-star coming out of Plant, Florida. And the reason why he wasn't even he wasn't the top 5 being prospected from his own team. And it had everything to do with his size, and they just weren't needing to utilize him all the time. So he had no other offers but NDSU. He was 6 foot. He was actually under 6 foot when he first got recruited. Before he came to Fargo, he actually grew a couple of inches. And since moving to Fargo, since he was such a late bloomer, he grew into one of the tallest wideouts in the entire draft. He's like 6'4.5", 6'5". But he's always had freakish speed, but he just added like great route running, now phenomenal hands. There was a question about his hands. That was some of like the original problem. I've had to dispel that multiple times just today. Yes, he did have some hand issues his sophomore and junior year. I completely agree. But from week 3 on, he didn't drop a pass. Also, in his entire collegiate career, he's never fumbled the ball. So when Christian Watson, every third pass, it's like 30% goes for a touchdown for him. So think 1 out of every 3. That's Randy Moss type stuff. You know what I mean? Like when you think of the ball in his hands and a real legitimate chance of 6 points every time he touches that ball, what more do you want from a wideout? There's no question to me if he's WR1. He just is. Anybody who says elsewise is straight up recruiting, helmet, not player. If you want me to prove that, I'm more than happy to very quickly. The majority of the FBS is 50-50 passing and running, right? NDSU is straight up 75% running. Okay. 90% of Christian Watson's productivity was in the first quarter. According to his father, I didn't even think of this at the time. Want to know why? Trey Lance, deep, early, ta-da, the game plan, all full 360 just came together right there like I told you it would, right? So the majority of his overall production happened in the first quarter because we were trying to open up the run game and make that more efficient. That's the only way we really utilize Christian Watson, other than trying to get him in more so because he's the most freak athlete on the field into the jet sweep. So that's where you get into the Debo Samuel portion of who Christian Watson is. He's a faster Debo, okay, without the physicality. And he's absolutely physical, but Debo is looking to hurt somebody that even looks at him sideways.
That man loves it.
And I effing love that about him. We have a fullback at NDSU, the exact same thing. He pile drives people in the end zone, as he's 3 steps in. So that's Debo Samuel. I love that. He is a dog. But Christian Watson is a freak. He's Moss Light. He's got 23 miles per hour that he runs. There's no one else on the planet that's carrying a football that I know of that's running that fast other than the freak, Tariq Hill. So I don't know. I'm happy to answer anything. His dad actually tells me half of the stuff.
Yeah. So let's just continue. Honestly, I want to ask questions about Christian Watson. So
please do.
You say he's wide receiver 1 in this draft.
Yes.
Obviously he's a lot of people, are saying he goes lower round 1, maybe early round 2, but
yep.
Do you think with the 49ers, if say they end up getting Christian Watson, he would immediately become wide receiver 1 over, Ayuk and Debo even? Is he just he just seems like a weapon, he just seems like the kind of guy Kyle needs.
So I don't foresee. Here's my prediction: if you get Christian Watson and Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Kittle on the same team with Trey Lance leading you, you win the Super Bowl. That I make that prediction. I make that prediction legitimately and put $5,000 on it today.
See, the hype train is here, baby.
Not questioning it. Now, I don't think there's any scenario on the planet where that all comes together at the same time. I think it's either Debo sticks around or maybe some long shot, if he doesn't, that Christian Watson could come into play. I don't know. But what I know is I've looked at Mechie from Alabama, Sky Moore from Western Michigan, George Pickens. I've looked at, I've looked at Dotson from Penn State. I looked at Olaf. I looked at Wilson. No. Nobody touches him. Everybody's like, oh, well, he's got the shiftiness and he's got the separation. And this guy's like an all-around athlete. He's not a true route runner. This guy has... None of them are freaks. Not one of them. Not one of them is a true freak. If you want a guy who can throw his hand out and there's the ball one-handed and takes off without even pausing and heads down the sidelines and has a pass thrown to him that he catches in stride, and the DB is 1 foot from him, and he catches it and then pulls away without getting touched. I'm sorry, I got nothing for you if you don't think that that's a number 1 wideout. So yeah, he would probably be a freak right off of the bat. The only question really is he's never had that type of frequency of, NDSU passes the ball 20 times a game, period. Like every other team on an average, college football team has 80 plays per game, right? And they're 50-50. So they're already getting double the chances that Christian Watson is. So when you're comparing overall production, I'm sorry, you can't. You just flat out can't. He also averaged 33 yards per kick return. He houses kick returns. Like he's Devin Hester with great hands and a Megatron type body. I don't know what more you want. Everybody can argue it all day, but the fact is you put on his game film and you're just like, what am I watching? And I'm like, exactly. Now have everybody on Twitter tell you that he's a late first round, early second round. I predict him as WR1 back in September of 2019. You know what's changed? Everybody else has gotten him up to wide receiver 2 for big boards. Not everyone, but I'm saying like a couple of big board analysts took him from wide receiver 75, not number 75, wide receiver 75 to up to number 2 now. And I'm just like, Yeah, I mean, you're 3 years behind. What do you want? What do you want? So, somebody, I wanted to address a question. Somebody had asked me, like, who's the best of Carson Wentz and Christian Watson and Lance?
We got a
Lance.
couple of those questions.
Yeah, Lance's. But Lance doesn't become Lance without Wentz and Stick. That's straight up fact. Like you have to understand that each one of those players was an NFL quarterback training another NFL quarterback, right? So
yeah.
Anyway,
and then sticking with the Christian Watson thing, you mentioned, I think to me, we were talking at some point in a space, and you said that, Christian Watson is kind of a project in some ways. And I just want you to emphasize on that more because, what happens is Justin Jefferson, who you are a fan of the Minnesota Vikings, that Justin Jefferson came in the league, set it on fire, was amazing right out the bat. But generally, these wide receivers don't hit the first year. They don't come out, guns blazing. Even DK Metcalf, who, is an athletic freak like you're talking about and had, everyone knows I worked in Seattle how I feel about Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson literally made this.
I don't know how you feel. I mean, I could presume based on you being a San Fran fan, but
Russell Wilson is a god, and anyone who talks.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm wrong. There you go.
I'll never well, I hate him. Don't get me wrong. He's a god I hate. He's like the god who you want to bring rain to you in California, but continues to not bring it to you, so you hate his guts. That's what Russell Wilson is. You have to worship what he does because he brings rain, but he's not bringing rain to you.
Nate, do you know who that is? That's Aaron Rodgers to me.
That's Aaron Rodgers, exactly. So you know exactly what it is.
I've hoped that every Green Bay Packer quarterback would die. And and I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But the problem is that Dan O'Brien or whatever his nuts was that with Marshawn Lynch, the quarterback that ended up in Houston, Matt Schaub, right? Mm-hmm. Matt Schaub was not Brett Favre. Do you know what I mean? So we had to suffer back-to-back a-holes like that. You guys have just had one, right? We've had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And then the son of a bee says last year that he's going to retire and then doesn't. And then he says the end of this year that he's going to retire and then signs a ginormous 3 to 4 year contract. So
Rodgers is just in a world of his own. But I get
it.
Back to the thread I started before I started talking about everything under the sun.
I get off on
honestly, anyone who comes on this show, don't bring up Russell Wilson because I'm going to go that way. And this show's never going to end if we do that. And so we're talking about, wide receivers don't tend to hit in the first year. So, when you think about Christian Watson, does he hit the first year with the 49ers and Trey Lance? You could I'll ask another question after this that's kind of related to this, but I want to hear your answer on this.
Yeah. I mean, he's a fourth year. He's a super senior. And his best production was this year with a decent to good quarterback. He doesn't have Trey Lance's arm. Then again, nobody does. I mean, Wentz has a phenomenal arm. It's still not as strong as Lance's. But yeah, I think he definitely hits year one. It's if he can stay healthy, because anytime you're talking about freak athletes with that kind of speed, it's all a matter of as long as nothing happens to slow him down, because if it does, it's like throwing a monkey wrench in a gear. You know what I mean? I don't want to say he's not resilient because he has been, but at the same time, it scares the ever-loving bejesus out of you. Hamstring type stuff and ACLs and stuff happen with those guys all the time. So as long as he stays healthy, definitely, I think he can have top 10 wideout.
So then the other question I want to ask you is, we're now living in a world where Joe Burrow chose to take Jamar Chase over a tackle. They have publicly said they asked Joe Burrow who he wanted. He said he wanted Jamar Chase. And I understand that Christian Watson is probably not Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase won a national championship with Joe Burrow, and I understand Trey Lance won a national championship to Christian Watson. It's a little different there. But
I do have some inside information regarding that, if that's what you're getting at.
So when you think about pairing Trey Lance with his number one wide receiver from college, and a lot of people like to downplay this and say that it's not a big deal because Jamar Chase was already a freak. But what you're saying, what you're telling our listeners is that Christian Watson is a freak. And so when you think about pairing Trey Lance with Christian Watson, do you see that kind of chemistry, that kind of stuff going on where, I mean, it's automatic like it was with the Bengals?
My number one pinned tweet prior to a new pinned tweet regarding Trey Lance and how fast he ran was the tweet where I specifically stated QB1 and WR1 from the undefeated 2019 national champions did not play in Baton Rouge. And I have stood by that since 2019 September. Yes, I know how crazy of a statement that is. I stick by it, and I unabashedly will never withdraw from it. Not until I'm proven otherwise. And by proven otherwise, I mean they have to draft Christian Watson. And I know that they don't place the Bengals this year, so I guess it would be next year. But I promise you, that's an axe to grind. I promise you that's something that the two of them have talked about. Also, if you want to know how close Trey Lance and Christian Watson is from a boys standpoint, because I mean, everybody knows the story between Burrow and Chase, right? And Chase has got literally went up to the guy next door and bought the house straight from him that night or something, and they're best buddies and live next door to each other. Yeah, Watson and Lance are really good friends. They keep in contact all the time. They were buddies and they hung out all the time socially back when they were playing together. Trey's brother, Bryce, is actually the one that released it on social media last night. I want to say last night that Christian Watson got engaged. So he was with him at the time. So if you get what I'm saying there, I'm saying they're really, really tight. So I know personally that Christian has to keep his options open, but I don't work in media anymore. I'm in the marketing and advertising side of things. So I don't have to take the political side of what I say and don't say. I can say the things that they probably cannot say. And that is, I think Christian definitely wants to come to San Francisco and play with Trey. I don't think it's logistically possible. I know that his father wants him to go to Green Bay or Kansas City. By the way, there are a lot of mock drafts that are putting Christian Watson in now in Cleveland because he's interviewing there on Friday. But then also in Green Bay and in Kansas City. Can you imagine the daunting task of having to replace Tyreek Hill or Davante Adams year one and expecting not to drop off in, any production level? I think that's pretty effing crazy. Yes, Christian Watson is 100% that freak. He's absolutely that freak. He just needs the reps. He just needs, like I told you, every other guy out there that you're talking about in this draft has seen double the amount of throws sent their way because they're 50-50 run and pass. Nobody but NDSU runs 75% of the time. And people are like, well, if Olave went down to the FCS, he would have dominated at the hell he would have. He would have sat on the bench his freshman year, just like Watson did. He would have gotten just as many passes as Watson did, and probably would have had lesser production because he's not as fast as he is. He's not as tall as he is. The reason being is, again, NDSU has won 9 of 11 titles. Why on God's green earth would you ever change your fundamental game plan that always works because you've got this freak athlete? No, you just try and incorporate him different ways, like jet sweeps, putting him in the backfield, which they did, and it worked. So they did pretty much everything that they could. And his dad is very appreciative of NDSU. Actually, NDSU's coach is not the one who recruited Christian Watson. The current Kansas State coach, Chris Kleiman, who was our coach, is the one that recruited him. Kleiman has, if you go back and look, Kleiman has a phenomenal run of recruiting for the NDSU Bison. He actually recruited Lance as well, or was a big part of it anyway.
So we know about Christian Watson. We know Trey Lance is the quarterback. We've got you on to talk about North Dakota State. Richard McDonald right here. And by the way, if you have any questions,
let's ask some questions, by the way.
We're going to do questions. Richard McDonald will do the first question. He says, I know a lot of tensions on Christian Watson, but there's is there any other guys coming out of North Dakota State that they could be on the lookout for? The 49ers could sneak with some of those later picks. Any of those guys that you've seen that could be useful for the 49ers this season?
2 guys, absolutely. One, not as much so. The first one, if you don't get him, I'm going to be severely disappointed because he is a gem and you're able to get him cheap. And by cheap, I mean 4th or 5th round. Cordell Volson. He is a versatile guard and tackle. He can play on either side. He is slightly better at guard than he is at tackle. But this Pennington kid out of Northern Iowa, who is currently like the number 4 tackler. That's a joke. He's a poser. Cordell Volson's way better than he is. So flat out. I mean, and this is proven. Anything that I state for the most part, although it might sound crazy, I go back to my days in radio. I'm always referencing some article or expert or something that I can come back to and prove. So yeah. Cordell Volson's the number 1. Josh Babbage is a 6'6" tight end, phenomenal blocker. And I think in the 49ers run game, even though, I mean, Kittle is Kittle, right? But he needs to be out there like a freak catching passes because he has, I honestly believe, some of the best hands in the game today. Even, barring his injury status is seems like it's up in the air all the time. But Babbage is a 6'6" touchdown pass catching tight end that is an elite blocker. So when you've got a run game like you guys have, anybody that you can turn into a blocker, i.e. Christian Watson or Josh Babbage, that can also be a multifaceted player like a return man or a straight up wideout, or a versatile, X back, or Josh Babbage where he can catch the ball anywhere. The guy has like the second longest NDSU touchdown pass of all time. It's insane. It's a comedy of errors situation that happened, but he scored like an 88-yard touchdown for us like 2 years ago. And the guy's 6'6", so he's not the fastest person on the planet, but he's got phenomenal hands. Former volleyball player, D1 volleyball player. So you know that he has ups. You know that he has, pass catching ability. So, yep, he's another one. I think he had 12 touchdowns for us. So.
And I think that someone's asked this question already, but we're going to just put it up there real quick. This is C's. He wants to know who has a better season this year, Wentz or Lance?
This year?
Yeah.
Lance. I honestly think it's going to be Lance. And that,
even though it's kind of a rookie year for him in that way?
Yeah. Again, you guys see it as a rookie year. We don't. We saw last year as his rookie year. We see this as the year where they dominate. It's crazy. I know it's crazy. I know it sounds crazy. Cole Payton, dude. Cole Payton's our Trey Lance, meaning that's our quarterback that's coming up right now that has his number 2 year. Listen how crazy that this sounds. I'm going to try and be quick about this. Our current quarterback, who is good, not phenomenal, good. Cam Miller is this cat's name. You could see him throwing passes to Christian Watson in his pro day last week. Did a great job in doing so. I don't know if it's serious or not, but there's a lot of talk of benching him and putting in Cole Payton, who would be our first true southpaw. Now, what you have to understand is Cam Miller just led us to and won us the national championship. Do you know how effing crazy that sounds? It sounds batshit crazy, and yet it's serious because you don't bench a second-year Bison quarter. Yeah. It's like a fundamental. We've had 6 opportunities, right, to have second-year quarterbacks play, right, at whatever level that we're talking about. Every one of them has won a championship, NCAA or NFL. Now, granted, you would think that would mean more NFL. It's only one, but still legitimate. So. Yeah. I see Wentz and Lance both having a top 10. I think that they might be neck and neck. Honestly, they very well might be, but Lance is going to be cleaner. I'll tell you that much. I project. I'm not doing a lot of projections because I promised Jesse that I would do my exact projections on his channel.
No worries.
But I'm thinking it's going to be a 4-to-1 ratio minimum, and that's insane to say about a quarterback. Look at what Trevor Lawrence just did. It was like 12-17 or some crazy stuff like that, right?
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Wentz has a turnover problem too. Like that was something.
Definitely.
Had Philadelphia.
He has
a
Superman
I think Lance is going to be way better. I think way better. I think
he's going to be way better. I think statistically they're going to be pretty close, except for the turnover ratio.
We have a question right here. So over under for 30 touchdown passes for Trey Lance. This is from Kelts Chronicles.
Yeah, I just love how everybody's like, but there's got to be a way around Chad giving his projections and predictions.
Yeah, exactly, right?
If we just specifically ask the stat. Under. That much.
Under. Just barely.
Yeah. But overall, that's just taking into account passing, right? That's all I'm saying.
So another one from Rich. Do you think Lance will change his running style when he runs? He tries to run people over instead of getting down or running out of bounds.
Yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan is going to beat the ever-loving out of him if he doesn't do that. And so will all of NDSU. Want to know why? Because that's what happened to Carson Wentz. He got hurt. He's never been the same since. He's got a Superman complex. He's brittle. Trey is not brittle, but he can't be bulldozing cornerbacks and DBs like he was in Fargo or in Minnesota or anything like that. These boys hit back considerably harder. I think he learned that on the design run plays where he got the crap kicked out of him and didn't pick up like 3 first downs and then wasn't able to run it in against Arizona during that as well. That's a lot of games. That's a lot of scheming, in my opinion. But I hope to God, because we're going to shoot him if he doesn't get down. He needs to learn how to slide. I don't think he's going to want to slide. He needs to learn how to slide. He also needs to learn that it's occasionally okay to throw the ball out of bounds, because he just doesn't do that. He just doesn't. And there are quarterbacks out there that are like that. Pat Mahomes doesn't really either, right? Not much.
I think you've answered this one too, but out of all the North Dakota quarterbacks you've witnessed as a North Dakota State fan, as someone who's worked radio for North Dakota State, where would you place Lance?
As far as North Dakota quarterbacks, number one. And we had 1 season with that kid. 1, definitely. But you have to understand that we fundamentally believe that it's not just like, okay, Lance is 1, Wentz is 2, that kind of thing. We believe that Brock Jensen led to Carson Wentz and his opportunity in the NFL. We believe that Easton Stick's opportunity was from Carson Wentz and being taught by him. And we believe that Trey Lance is in the NFL because of Easton Stick. So does his father. His dad and Trey gives Easton like 50% of the credit just because he taught him everything, like the ins and outs and the nuances. You are an ambassador of this game. You're an ambassador of the team. Everything that you do, living, eating, thinking, breathing, is a reflection on this franchise, on your individual coaches, on everybody who has ever put any amount of faith or an ounce of help into you getting here. You're representing them at the next level. You have to be mature. You have to take on that role. You have to be the best of the best. You have to outwork everyone. That's something you're going to find at NDSU. No one outworks North Dakota. They just don't. So that's, I guess, what I would say in that regard. But Trey Lance is hands down number 1. Then it's Carson Wentz. Then I'm going to put Easton Stick over Jensen, even though a lot of people in Fargo be like, really? Well, Easton Stick was 49-3 all time. He's the greatest, winningest FCS player of all time. So yes.
All right, we'll do one more.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One more question. I know it's late over there, so I don't want to keep you too much longer.
No. By all means.
One more question. Yep. And then we'll head out for the night. How long do you think it will take Trey Lance to win a championship on San Francisco?
Oh, I've said this. 3 years. I'm thinking within 3 years. I think you get 3 years. I think you get 6 within 3. Honest to God, I think he's the top. I've put my money on this quite a bit. That he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in 3 years or less. And I've done it. I did the exact same thing and cashed in for 5 G's on Carson Wentz, and I have no problem saying that either. So yeah, I put my money where my mouth is. I put my money where my mouth is.
If you tuned in at all for any of this show and you're not hype as all hell after that, I don't know what you're here for at this point. This man's going to bring a 6.
Yeah, there's no reason why not to be hyped about this kid. I just laugh at all the people that are like, but Jimmy this and Jimmy that. You have to understand, all true Trey Lance fans from Fargo, North Dakota are Jimmy Garoppolo fans up until about 2 weeks from now. He's got about another 2 weeks, and then I foresee some toxicity through ripple effects that are unable to be seen by anyone. And by that, I mean like what happens when in the offseason that Kittle's doing something and, hey, Jimmy, you want to come and hang out for like, that's a ripple effect. That's going to have toxicity. That's going to have never-ending consequences that you don't know the likes of. That's my opinion on the matter. So, but also I have stated this many times. At no point in time was Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, were they in a competition with one another? At no point. It was always a red shirt. If they were in a competition, Trey Lance hands down beats the shit out of him. It's not even close. I love Jimmy Garoppolo. He is good at what he does. He's good at getting the ball out quick. He's good with accuracy, right? It's just not like you got to have that guy. Trey Lance is that guy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Everybody wants that guy. Our guy is Kirk Cousins. You know what he's not? That guy. Kirk Cousins will never win us a championship. Never. He'll never even be close. Want to know why he's not a top 5 quarterback?
Fan. You're good because we're going to get 6.
I've gotten into I told somebody earlier today, I said, I've got 16 or 17 more letdown years in my fandom before I switch over to the Niners. So no offense, but yeah, you're definitely my number 2 team this year.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Chad. It's been super fun. I think we not only informed people, but I think we got people damn hyped with what's going on with the 49ers.
Are there any other questions? Like, can I steal like 2 minutes and answer a couple of questions?
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask any more questions, you're welcome to.
Well, I just see a bunch of questions over here, and I don't want to I did this with Jesse, and I kept going on and then didn't answer any of your questions. So I just want to quickly go through.
Where do you think Lance finishes in fantasy football next year?
Top 5 quarterbacks. I've put money on it. All of this. I have no problem just straight up saying. Is he worried about the way the O-line is currently constructed? No, because I know you guys are making a big deal out of the O-line situation.
And
I missed that one. I'm sorry. You've lost some in the O-line, but you had one of the top O-lines in the NFL last year, right? So I'm telling you, if you can get Cordell Volson on the cheap, not for a second. No, I think that if you've got a quarterback like Lance, no. I mean, it's important to have a good offensive line, but not the most. He's going to find his opportunities. He's going to get out of the pocket. He's going to climb the pocket. He's going to do what he needs to do. So any other questions?
Asking how to get a North Dakota State jersey.
Dude, I can definitely get you. Yeah. I need to get myself a new one.
Make sure if you tuned in at all during the show, you follow him on Twitter at FaithfulTrey. This man knows more about North Dakota State players. He knows more about Trey Lance than most people on Twitter. It's been a pleasure, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, you too, man. Thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And hit me up, anybody, if you got any follow-up questions. I'm happy to answer them if I know them. If I don't, I'll flat out tell you I don't. So.
And I appreciate Jesse for introducing us. That guy has helped me more than he actually knows, so I really appreciate him. And
that kid,
we'll be back again next Tuesday, 8:00. Me and Jamal Armstrong just going to sit around, talk draft, talk a little bit of shop, talk about the 49ers.
Ooh.
As we get
See,
closer,
Jamal knows some NDSU stuff too, dude. He surprised me in Jesse's. Yeah.
He's going to come on and we're going to talk a bunch of draft stuff. So I'm super excited. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. We're here on youtube.com now, episode 1. I'm so damn happy. And if you want to say it with me, Chad,
I do.
Say it with me. You ready? Are you ready?
I'm not ready. I don't remember what it was.
Okay. It's the hype train never stops.
Got it.
All right. You ready?
Yes.
And
the hype train.
Wait. Like and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can get a chance at that Trey Lance jersey we're going to give away at 1,000. Make sure you check out the podcast. If you missed part of the show, go to the podcast, check it out. And as always, the hype train never stops. It's hard to do it at the same time. Goodbye. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.